Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 8:07, and this is our fourth hour of the day. If you missed any of our program up until now, please subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss a thing. And in fact, this isn't just our fourth hour. This is our 20th hour of the week. It's the last hour of the week, Patrice. It's Friday, or as you like to say,
Fry, yay! Oh man, I can't even get it out. It's Friday. Happy Friday, Larry.
Wow, that was real. That was raw. That was voice, organic. Right? That was natural. That was very Peter Brady when his voice was changing.
I promise you, I'm not a 13-year-old boy.
No doubt. In fact, we know otherwise because we saw you in the Oval Office on Wednesday with your first grader and your second grader, your two boys. And then there was a little educational moment there where you taught the president about, well, your son taught the president about homogenization and where milk comes from. It was an amazing moment.
It was. And folks, let me just dispel any rumors. I did not coach him on that answer. That was Jesse. All I told him, just remember your name, your age, and your what class, grade level you are. And then he's the one who, unprompted, decided to talk to President Trump. And we were just so tickled when we saw him.
No, his poise and his demeanor was phenomenal, and we're very proud of you. Thanks for representing O'Connor and Company so well there.
It's my pleasure. It's our pleasure.
That was a great moment of humanity and joy that we witnessed. Sadly, surrounded by quite a bit of violence and upheaval coming out of the Twin Cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul in Minnesota, and overnight, over the last 12 hours, things have gotten even more heated. Governor Tim Walz, less than a week ago, said that they were at war with the federal government. And then yesterday he had the hubris to ask for calm and everyone just take a step back here and take a deep breath and let's not let things get out of hand. He was literally saying that he was saying that he was calling out the National Guard to protect Minnesotans from the federal ICE agents. It's absolutely insane. He also encouraged Minnesotans to go out and get their smartphones and document, and which, of course, is tantamount to telling them to get in the face and impede and obstruct. And that's exactly what we've seen for the last couple of days. And the activities of these activist, agitator, resistors have turned into violence. We've seen absolute vandalism, outright theft of government property, including a rifle and ammunition as they busted into a lockbox that was in the back of a hatch of a federal agent's car. It's absolutely out of hand. And the Attorney General of Minnesota, Keith Ellison, he gave a press conference yesterday that made him sound like Jefferson Davis. Let me quote what he said. The 10th Amendment gives the state of Minnesota and its subdivisions, including the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, inviolable sovereign authority to protect the health and well-being of all those who reside, work, or visit within their borders. And they interpret that inviolable sovereign authority to protect their residents to include impeding the activities and even, if necessary, arresting federal law enforcement agents like ICE agents or Border Patrol. This is how a civil war begins, Patrice.
It is. But before we get into the secession piece of this, Larry, I really do worry that as we are as we're seeing this play out, law enforcement against law enforcement, but that's what the left wants. The ball, I don't want us to lose sight of the ball with Minnesota, with Keith Ellison, with Mayor Fry, with every Democratic lawmaker in Minnesota that has allowed fraud in the Somali community to go unchecked for all of these years, totaling hundreds of billions of dollars of taxpayer money. I don't want that. I don't want that news to be lost in this fight, because I think the left really, they want to change the subject, and Ellison wants to be able to stand up and hold a piece of paper in front of a press conference and look like he's doing something, when in fact we're starting to see that he was potentially complicit, allegedly complicit in all of the fraud that we've seen in the Somali community. So I don't want us to lose sight of a big picture issue here too.
Oh, well said. You're right, because I think that is part of the intention. Now everyone's talking about this instead of the fraud. However, it can't go unnoticed that Minnesota's position basically is that federal law doesn't apply to us, because if you're trying to remove ICE, it means you're removing and trying to impede ICE and trying to order ICE out and get in ICE's way of doing their job. It means that you are trying to remove any enforcement of immigration or customs laws that are on the federal books. In other words, ICE's job is to enforce the federal immigration and customs laws. They are in Minnesota doing just that. In fact, they've arrested like 2,000 during this surge of activity. 2,000 criminals, gang members, thugs who are here illegally. They're doing their job enforcing those federal laws. Minnesota is saying, nope, we have a sovereign right to be free of those activities, which means that Minnesota claims that federal law, and specifically immigration and customs laws, don't apply to them because they can't enforce those laws. Only federal agents can enforce those laws, and they are declaring themselves sovereign from the activities of those federal agents. Noah Rothman at Commentary pointed out the histrionic and volatile language that Tim Walz, the governor, has used in his address to Minnesotans. And I'll quote Noah Rothman: "We can't be sure that Walz is deliberately radicalizing the impressionable and reinforcing the delusion that federal law enforcement officers are a hostile occupation force they've been deputized by the state to confront. Maybe he's too thick to understand the gravity of his remarks. But he's playing with fire," and he is, because every night now, since he gave his remarks Wednesday afternoon, we've had violence in the streets. We've had violence against ICE agents. We had an assault on an ICE agent with a shovel, and we had the Antifa types who were on the streets, motivated by Tim Walz, trying to bust through the fence outside an ICE headquarters in Minnesota. It is absolute insanity, and Tim Walz they lit this fire, and now they're pouring gasoline on it. The message that they have consistently is, Trump wants the chaos. There's chaos, there's chaos, there's chaos, and Trump wants the chaos. Let me just say something very specifically. Trump and ICE agents do not want chaos. They want to be able to do their job unimpeded. The only reason that there is chaos is because there are all of these rioters, this mob of activists who are getting in the way of ICE agents doing their job. That's what creates the chaos. You know how I know that? Because this isn't happening elsewhere. In other states that don't have sanctuary policies, these illegal alien criminals are being handed over in an orderly fashion. Because ICE doesn't have to go onto the street to try to hunt them down. It's these policies that are causing the chaos.
Well, and the irony, I listened to a clip where a caller into Stephen A. Smith's show educated him on that and said, you guys are so upset about what's happening with ICE and law enforcement. The reason why it's different under Trump compared to under Obama, compared to under Joe Biden, compared to under previous administrations, is that under previous administrations, state and local law enforcement worked with federal law enforcement to execute these ICE detainers and to ensure that criminal illegal aliens were turned over to them. But now no one wants to work with the Trump administration as a protest to him being in office, and that's why you're seeing this play out. And it was like a light bulb that went off in Stephen A. Smith's head, but it's something that we all have known. This is what happens when you make everything hate Trump, no Trump, protest Trump, anti-Trump.
Right.
That you dismiss common sense and you disregard what's actually good for your communities.
The confrontations are happening in Minneapolis because the left wants confrontations to happen in Minneapolis.
They do.
ICE is operating and arresting illegal alien criminals everywhere in the country, and you're not seeing this. You're seeing it there for a reason. All right, more out of Minneapolis here. Big questions about who's funding all these organizations and the organizing efforts. And Tom Homan last night with some stunning remarks on Laura Ingraham that we want to play for you. All that coming up in a moment. First, though, at 6:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
All right, Tom Homan was on Laura Ingraham commenting on what was going on in Minneapolis, and he had a couple of very interesting things to say. You know how these insurrectionists, the rioters, the people who are being trained to disrupt ICE, there's actually a couple of organizations, one of them called Resist ICE, where they're trained with tactics on what to do, how to get in their way, and document everything on smartphones. Well, ICE has tactics of their own. Here's Tom Homan, cut 25.
And these people who want to, say follow ICE, and film ICE, you know what? You can protest. They have that right. But when you cross that line, and we've proven it, if you interfere or impede or assault an ICE officer, you will be prosecuted. And one thing I'm pushing for right now, Laura, we're going to create a database. Those people that are arrested for interference, impediment, assault, we're going to make them famous. We're going to put their face on TV. We're going to let their employers in their neighborhoods, in their schools, know who these people are. Because as you said, a lot of these people, they say they're taking time off work to protest. I bet you a lot of them are calling in sick. I bet you a lot of their employers don't know what they're doing. But we're going to make sure everybody knows who they are. We're going to broadcast. They want to broadcast the ICE officer that was nearly killed all over the internet. We're going to broadcast every one of these people we arrest.
There you go. An insurrectionist database, and they're going to make them famous for their employers.
Well, I mean, you do have to track these individuals because obviously they are demonstrating, not the ones that are necessarily peaceful, but the ones who are being disruptive and destructive as Tom Homan. Oh, by the way, I ran into Tom Homan, the boys and I. We got to shake his hand at the White House. It was so funny.
Cool.
But yes, it's important that that they're tracking these individuals. Yeah. And you know what, Larry? When you get arrested and you get a criminal record, in a lot of states, anyone can easily look that up and look up a regular citizen. So this is kind of just putting all that information that's already out there in one place for employers to know about.
So the violence continues. It appears that elected officials are incapable of utilizing local and state police authorities to stop the violence against ICE agents, or it looks as though they're unwilling, since they are not allowing local law enforcement to accompany and do crowd control when ICE is doing their operations. Many people are suggesting to the president that this all calls for him invoking the Insurrection Act. We'll give you little details in history about the Insurrection Act in a moment, but here's Tom Homan mentioning that yesterday.
Is it time for the Insurrection Act, or would that just add gasoline to the fire?
Well, I'm not going to get ahead of the president on that, but it's certainly an option, a viable option. So actually, I'll be meeting with the president tomorrow. So, I think it's something that needs to be on the table because this cannot continue. There is going to be more bloodshed. I'm telling you. I hope I'm wrong, but I haven't been yet. There's going to be more bloodshed if something hasn't done.
It's going to spread, and most Minnesotans, by the way, and I want to say this tonight because folks have reached out to me, support ICE. It's this radical group of anarchists, and when you see them close up, you really get a sense of who they are.
That's right.
It's this crowd.
So do we need the Insurrection Act here? Many people are looking at it objectively and saying this has all the hallmarks of triggering the Insurrection Act. Last time it was triggered was George Herbert Walker Bush during the Rodney King riots in Los Angeles.
Ooh, interesting.
It has been invoked 30 times by 17 different presidents. 37% of American presidents, over one-third of American presidents, have invoked the Insurrection Act at one point or another, dealing with rebellions, uprisings, and like the Rodney King riots in Los Angeles, a circumstance where at that time the law enforcement in Los Angeles County and the city of Los Angeles were incapable of stopping the violence and quelling the crowd. I'm not sure if the Minneapolis police are incapable, but they're unwilling or they're not being directed to because of the willful negligence of the elected officials there. So that would certainly up the ante here, Patrice, but it would also bring peace and order to the city. What do you think?
I just hate the idea, the visuals of, local law enforcement against federal law enforcement as though this is another civil war splitting the it is going to be representative of conservatives versus Republicans, Democrats versus as though this is like the Armageddon, the second Civil War, I guess. I'd like to believe that we don't have to get that far, or frankly, give the left that much credit here. They need to back down, and maybe by just talking about it, that would be enough to make them back down. I'm hopeful of that.
Yeah, me too. One other thing, by the way, this is organized. This is funded.
Oh, it is. It is.
And Minneapolis school employees now are handing out, these are school, teachers and administrators, et cetera. They are handing out whistle packs to students. Whistle packs at every school in the district. They're directed to follow the instructions on a flyer that says if you spot ICE near or in the school, to start blowing the whistle. You hear whistles all the time. This is a thing in Minneapolis now, that whenever ICE is doing an operation, you're hearing this screeching whistle going on. It's meant to alert everyone that ICE is around, but it's also annoying to the agents, and it creates this level of chaos. Where did these whistles come from? Who printed out the flyers? Why are school government employees participating in the resistance, and who's funding all of it? All questions that deserve to be answered, I would think, Patrice, considering this
Minneapolis taxpayers should definitely not see another bond request on their next election ballot asking for money for paper to print homework on if they have monies for whistles to alert people to ICE.
That's right. The instructions say, wear your whistle around your neck, teach family and neighbors the codes, use it when ICE is spotted, form a crowd, and stay loud. And then it has a website, defend612.com. That's the area code there, defend612.com. Yeah, maybe we should get to the bottom of that and figure out where all that money's coming from. It's 8:24.
All right. In a throwdown between Ben Shapiro and California Governor Gavin Newsom, who do you think is going to take the title? We'll tell you who won in their throwdown. Stay with us. It's O'Connor and Company at 8:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington. A Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
8:37. Good morning, and thanks for tuning into O'Connor and Company. 30 minutes from now, we'll hand it off to Chris Plant, as we always do, because, well, he's the best. It's Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning, Larry.
Our buddy Ben Shapiro, or I shouldn't say, I don't know if you know, I've known Ben for forever. He's a very good friend, and he obviously knows his way around an argument or two. And like yours truly, Ben and I considered ourselves Californians for a good portion of our lives until both of us left that state. But we have many friends and family still living there. That's why this conversation that Ben engaged with Gavin Newsom on is pretty important, I think, and probably the first time that Gavin Newsom has been in the hot seat, frankly. This was, by the way, of his own making. Gavin Newsom has a podcast, which, doesn't he have a job? Don't you think being governor of California is kind of an important gig?
I thought he had a job running his own social media, but apparently that's not the case. So I don't know. I guess he just wants to be a star.
Well, he's on his podcast. He invites Ben Shapiro on to have a conversation, and there were a lot of good, juicy tidbits here. You'll remember the last time he had a young conservative activist podcaster on. It was Charlie Kirk. And during that conversation, Gavin Newsom attempted to try to triangulate on the transgender issue. He says, listen, man, I get it. It's not fair. You see some of these guys, some of these transgender athletes, and they're biological men, and they're competing against women, and it's clearly not fair, so I get this issue. Yeah, so he gets to say that. But he, as governor, never did anything about it.
Exactly, yeah.
And by the way, that's the lowest of low-hanging fruit when it comes to the transgender issue, because obviously it's not fair. Obviously.
Absolutely.
But what about the danger it poses to girls who are competing in sports, like when they suffer a concussion when a volleyball is spiked at their head?
Yes.
Or the danger that they have in the dressing room and the locker room, having to undress in front of a biological male or be exposed to by a biological male, et cetera, not to mention the dangers to children who are encouraged to go through these processes, which can harm their bodies. So Ben Shapiro was having none of that garbage, and he went right at it. Take a listen. Cut 27.
Fundamental question that lies at the root of all of this is the question that you're not wanting to answer, which is whether boys can become girls.
Yeah, I think for the grace of God. Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate the sympathy. I also feel terrible for anybody who's suffering with any sort of
I think it's
mental or
been
physical
the
condition.
case
That's
for
terrible,
generations, for time immemorial. God bless. I don't know how.
Why is this a hard one? I just don't understand.
Because I don't know why it's such a. Why is it such a? I'm curious. I understand the political potency of it.
It's not just politically potent,
but it's just how. It's so few. We're talking about so few people.
It's not about that
that are struggling with gender identity issues. A lot of remarkable people, a lot of wildly successful people, and they've gone on in their life, have incredible lives. I don't know. There's so much hate and bigotry, so much condemnation,
this
judgment.
This is the part where I start to object.
Yeah.
Okay, the idea that
you may not be spewing it.
No.
Like some others. Trust me.
But
this is the business they're in.
There are lots of terrible people who say lots of terrible things, but
yes.
It is not an act of bigotry to say that a boy cannot become a girl, nor should my children be taught in K through 12 public schools that a boy can become a girl.
Yeah.
That is not an act of bigotry. That's an act of rationality and biological simplicity.
I respect your point of view, and
but good people,
good people disagree on this.
I know, but
and a lot of states, not just California. Well-established rules, by the way, that predate me. Again, this is not where I started campaigning and advocating on these issues, as some suggest.
Wait, pause there. We'll get back to it, but that's an absolute obfuscation. Oh, these laws predate me. The laws in the last 8 years in California have been on steroids, having to do with this.
Absolutely, with his signature on them.
Under the guise of protecting transgender children, if there even is such a thing. And their rights from their parents' rights. And Gavin Newsom has absolutely allowed those laws to go through. And he vetoed one, which had to do with Child Protective Services removing children from the home of parents. But now it's still going through. He has not lectured his Democrats in Sacramento.
Exactly.
He has not said, don't do that. No, that is a lie. Oh, all these laws predate me. They have been on steroids since Gavin Newsom has been governor, and he has signed all of them into law. And he knows it.
This is an opportunity for Gavin Newsom to stand up and be counted and be a leader if he really wants to be the 2028 contender. And he's blowing this opportunity because he thinks, it's not a big deal. I'll be able to straddle the fence and work both sides of the aisle on this, and he can't.
Well, he's not even trying to work both sides of the aisle. He's trying to. If you listen, he's just demonizing people like Ben Shapiro who raise this issue in some way, saying that they're full of hate and that they don't have grace and God's grace for these people. And I said, no, we have plenty of sympathy and grace for these. But the fundamental question here, by the way, which he still hasn't answered, is can a boy become a girl? Can a boy become a girl? Can a boy become a girl? Answer the question, can a boy become a girl? And, well, it continues. Listen.
Advocating on these issues, as some suggest. Look, I'm with the Governor Spencer Cox, who said about many of these issues, never so much attention been placed on so few people.
And the problem is, I do think that on an electoral level, to go to the politics, it is a barrier to entry for a lot of people. When
I agree with that.
When you say a boy can become a girl. And then just on a realistic...
And by the way, I respect if that's your barrier to then listening to people on a myriad of other issues, so be it. It is what it is.
I find it strange that even if you wish to have a public policy that pursues something different, we cannot just admit that boys and girls are two different things and that a boy cannot become a girl. Why is this so difficult?
Yeah. I understand your point of view. And, and I also respect Caitlyn Jenner. I do.
But even Caitlyn Jenner is saying, no, this is not right for girls' sports. Like, this is not fair. I mean, come on now.
Gavin Newsom's godson is really a goddaughter, a person who goes by the name of Nats Getty. Getty, that would be the Getty billionaire fortune family.
Yes.
It's amazing how many. It's like, oh no, this could happen to anyone, and yet the vast majority of people who end up being transgender end up being white affluent people with plenty of time and money on their hands, and usually connected to celebrity families. It's amazing how many of them are. All right, a little bit more from this exchange. They got into taxation policies and other issues in California.
Very important.
And ICE. Keep it here. It's 8:43.
Mark Levin, weekdays 6 till 9 on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
How about radically lowering the income tax rates in the state?
Well, California has tax. I mean, there's 16 states right now. Let's talk about those 16 states.
Why don't we talk about California? That's
I'm going to. They tax their low-wage earners more than California taxes its high-wage earners. Let's talk about lowering those tax rates in those 16 states.
Let's talk about other states. Let's talk about those other states.
Why don't just talk about eliminating income taxes altogether? There are a bunch of states that are moving towards that, and some states have no taxes on income at all.
Yeah, California has a 13.3% tax rate. It is the highest in the country. And then when you add to that the taxes that you pay in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and some of the higher density areas run by Democrats, it compounds. And that's why more Californians are leaving that state for other states than any other state for the 6th year in a row. That's U-Haul giving you those details and that data. But it doesn't matter. The facts don't matter when you're Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom's office, by the way, referred to ICE as state-sponsored terrorists.
Oh, goodness.
Ben Shapiro raised this issue with Gavin Newsom. First, he tried to lie and say, well, we never said that. And then when confronted with the truth, here's what happened.
Yeah. One was a narrative that was immediately pushed by the Trump administration and Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem that she was a domestic terrorist who was attempting to run over officers with her car and was legitimately trying, not just this officer, but multiple officers. That was the original statement. I said at the time, I thought that was untrue. And then your press office tweeted out that it was state-sponsored terrorism, which, I mean, Governor, I do have to ask you about that. Yeah. That sort of thing makes our politics worse.
Yeah.
I mean, it does.
Yeah.
I mean, our ICE officers obviously are not terrorists.
Yeah.
A tragic situation is not state-sponsored terrorism.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah.
What do you mean? What do you mean you think that's fair? These are the people that work for you, and he would have never said anything if Ben hadn't raised it to him. By the way, where's everyone? Why does it take Ben Shapiro as a guest on Gavin Newsom's show to raise these issues, and not any reporter covering politics in this entire country, let alone the networks that have him on all the time? Why don't they confront him with that and say, really, you think that ICE is state-sponsored terrorism?
Actually, Larry, I'm more interested in how the dynamics were in this interview. You interview people for a living. You do it all the time. We interview people here on the show. Why did it seem like it was the Ben Shapiro show interviewing Gavin Newsom? Gavin Newsom's like laid back. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I could almost see him like having had a very green, leafy, chewable or brownie right before sitting down. That's the vibe that I got from this interview. It's so strange, wasn't it?
I can answer your question. It's a great observation, and I can answer the question with two answers. The first is because Gavin Newsom would never go on Ben Shapiro's show, so this was Ben's chance. And so he approached it and said, oh, okay, you want me on your show so you can sort of, flex to people that you're willing to talk to the other side? And okay, fine. I'm going to come ready, and I'm going to have my own challenges and my own questions for you, and you better be ready for it. That's number one. Although, actually, I say that now, and knowing Gavin Newsom, I'm like, I'd love to come on your show because he actually wants an audience, right? Number two, knowing Ben's personality, this is, you invite Ben Shapiro over for a dinner party, and at some point he'll probably be in the kitchen, cooking the meal because he's just, he's very hands-on. He likes to take charge. And I mean that in a great and loving way. He's a great guy.
I'm not knocking it. I think it was great and a brilliant move to own the episode. That's what Ben did. He literally owned it. I just thought, wow, this is different.
It is 8:52.